Bring her back. You know, as a avid horror fan, I feel like the veterans of us that watch horror on a daily basis and they're looking for the new hot thing to come out, we're always looking for a movie that will re-traumatize us and give us all kinds of nightmares that we may have had when we first started out. Now, are we crazy? More than likely, but you know, it's the fun in it. This movie, though, is one of those movies that really disturbed me for the first time in a long time. The Philippa brothers, who are the brothers who directed Talk to Me, did an amazing thing on this. And I think this being their second movie they've done shows that these guys are here to stay for the long run. They are making great stuff thus far, and I'm excited to see what they do next. Without further ado, let's sit down, break down, and discuss why Bring Her Back is a movie that you should go watch.
You're now watching The Captain.
So getting into this movie, I will give a general synopsis first. Like, we'll try to get as spoiler-free as possible in this beginning, and then I'm gonna get into a lot more of the spoilery stuff. Starting off, this movie is one that really deals with the idea of grief and loss and how to deal with that, which is something that I'm noticing is a kind of a trend with the Philippa brothers stuff, because in Talk to Me, it was kind of a similar trend there of like how to deal with grief and loss and how to let the ones that you love that passed away kind of lie, let the dead lay, and moving on with your life. This movie is indeed following kind of that similar note, which in a side note, I found out through some research at the end of this movie, you see that there is kind of a tribute to a friend of theirs, Walter Wallace, I believe, or something Wallace. I can't remember the name off the top of my head because I just saw the movie, but he's a friend of the family that the directors had that passed away before pre-production started on this film. So his passing really affected a lot of the ways that things were shot in this movie. So I feel like these scenes and the way things were done were really authentic, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that these directors were kind of creating in the mode of actual loss, which is sad to see that it happened. But you know, I think we got something great in spite of the loss. But moving forward, though, like I said before, this movie is based around loss and grief. The main characters of this film are characters by the name of Andy and Piper. They're a brother and sister duo. They're step siblings. The father in this beginning of this film, he passes away through a tragic accident where he slips in the shower. And the siblings sadly find him. The film deals with a lot of that, and it gets into a lot of the serious, sad realities that a lot of people have in regards to the foster system, abuse, and how your family, despite abuse or despite feelings you have, it gets really complex with a lot of the familiar unit feelings that you would have with a family. Like, these two main characters in this being Piper and Andy, who are step siblings, although they love one another and care for one another a lot, there is this like interesting dynamic that you would see in real life. I think that's the thing that I love about a lot of the stuff that the Philippa brothers do, is that the characters in these films, especially this film, feel like real people. It feels like real people going through real issues, and issues that are just difficult to see. And I think that's why their films always kind of like hit me dead in my chest a lot, is because I feel like I could be easily a person that have gone through this situation if my life had went a different way. I don't know, man. It's really, really amazing the way that they're able to write these characters and the way that actors portray the script, because that's one thing I always have of note here, is that it seems like usually the actors in their films are usually a little bit younger, especially in this film, because I think one of the leading actresses, being Piper, she was maybe like, she couldn't have been any older than like 13. Like, she looked really, really young, and she was doing an amazing job in this. The other actor playing the, I guess, main monster, for lack of a better term, I'll get into details about that as we go forward, but he plays an amazing job with his body acting and the way he does the body horror and the creature movement. Is just it's amazing to see this young talent doing amazingly, and I can't wait to see what these young actors do in future projects. So maybe we'll see them in some other bigger horror movies with bigger studios down the line. The set design was amazing. Again, the movie took place for the most part in like 2 to 3 locations: the original home, the, I guess, DFAC's office, and then the central home where everything is happening. So for a small, intimate shot set of locations, as well as a smaller cast, again, everything's really optimized in this. Everything's really efficient in regards to where they shoot, how they shoot, who they're shooting with. Nothing feels like it is overdone, if that makes any sense. As far as the shots go, that's one thing that I found very interesting in regards to the movie, is a lot of the way this thing is shot from an interesting perspective. See, one of the main characters, Piper, she is a actor and also a character who is mostly blind, where to the point in the movie she discusses that she can only see shapes and colors for the most part. So a lot through this film, there are a lot of different moments where you see focus being played around with, where something will be out of focus, and so you'll see it in like the perspective of how Piper would see it, or things will be kind of like in focus but the background or the foreground is just being played around with here and there throughout the entire film. And it's something that I thought is really amazing. There's a lot of subtlety in regards to the foreshadowing as well that's done through some of the shots. It's amazing. Again, there's so many little details that if you are watching, you can pick up on. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. I tried my best. I can't beat around the bush in regards to this film anymore. I got to get into the spoilers. The film essentially follows the story of Piper and Andy, who are step siblings that tragically lose their father in the beginning of the film. They then are, through the sadness of the DFAC system and the foster care system, they are split up initially to be in 2 different homes because they have to be separated until Andy is 18, which he turns 18 in 3 months in this film, and then he can then apply for legal guardianship of his stepsister and they can, reunite. Obviously, Andy and Piper fight for them both to stay together because, they're siblings and he cares for her. And I think another significant thing about this, like I mentioned earlier, is that Piper is mostly blind for the most part. So she needs to walk around with her cane, and she has her brother there that is a big caretaker for her. Like literally from the beginning of the film, we see that he is very protective and very kind to his sister. And he's very empathetic as a character. The home they get placed in is a home that is owned by a woman by the name of Laura. Laura is a woman who was working in the DFAC system as a counselor for like 10 to 20 years. So it's somebody that the system has a lot of faith in and they trust a lot. So they sent her there because she obviously as well has history caring for blind children because she recently had the passing of her daughter, Kathy, who was also completely blind. So she has some experience dealing with children that are plagued with the same sort of symptoms or sickness that Piper is. So it seemed like a perfect place to put it, right? We get into the film and we start to notice little things. And I think it's little things that's built up through the script, showing that she has this sort of disdain for Andy. And you see it a lot earlier on through the film where she is completely ignoring him. She is forgetful of his name. She's not including him in a lot of the future plans that she has in regards to taking care of Piper. And she's just really fake in regards to her joy. She's just overly happy and overly welcoming. We then also have another character in the home that is also introduced, a character by the name of Oliver, or Ollie as Laura calls him. Oliver seems to be another child that she was fostering that the kids just happen to see there. Oliver is a very interesting boy who has then gone nonverbal after, according to Laura, the passing of her daughter Kathy, which sadly enough, Kathy died through drowning in the pool outside. Now, shining a light on Laura though, which is somebody that needs to be talked about because her actress did a banged up job with her. She's a character who's very much so uncomfortable with death and doesn't accept it. And you notice this by a scene they have later in the film where they're at the funeral of Andy and Piper's father. She notices that Andy doesn't want to look at his father in that state of being dead, which again is somebody that went through something similar with loss. I understand why you don't want to see your loved one who is so vibrant and full of life in that state of just lifelessness in that casket. You don't want to see that. But Laura picked up on that. Laura then proceeded to almost force Andy to confront the body of his father, saying that it was customary for him to kiss his father on the lips to say goodbye and things of that nature. And things got very, 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 very weird. And she was almost forcing him into doing it, and he didn't want to do it. And this is the key thing that sets up the rest of the film, in my opinion. Outside of you seeing some of the lore-based stuff like tapes that she was watching or some of the other little stuff, I think this scene in itself is the quintessential moment that summarizes the rest of the film. Laura has a unhealthy relationship with loss and grief and doesn't want to accept it, and she wants to force this on everybody else so that she can feel comfortable. Come to find out later in the film, and this is this big lore dump here, Laura at some point was either involved in or witnessed this, for lack of a better term, like death cult that had the practice of bringing somebody back to life by taking someone else and having them be possessed with the devil or the spirit of the person that passed away. And over a certain amount of time, they would have this person eat the corpse of the person who died and then kill someone else the same exact way that the other person died. And then that possessed body would then dump the spirit back into the new body, therefore bringing that person back to life in a new body. And it's a crazy process. And we see it kind of being symbolized in different forms in regards to the circle that is really put everywhere. There's a big circle, like chalk line around the entire house. You see circles be something that is used in regards to Laura kind of lulling Oliver to rest or to a sense of docile of being docile, I guess, for lack of a better term. You see a lot of that symbolism throughout it. All that being said, that is essentially the lore breakdown here. So if you can take that information and apply it to the actual movie itself, we have it to where Oliver is a child that Laura kidnapped like 13 days prior to everything going on, and she put her daughter Kathy's soul, or the demon, whatever it is, inside of Oliver's body, which we come to find out that the child Oliver, his real name is Connor Rock, I believe. It was the child that she just kidnapped like 13 days prior and put the soul inside his body. So we then have the possessed body of Connor sitting around the home all day waiting for the right opportunity. And what the opportunity is that they're waiting for is for a severe buildup of rain over a few days, because Kathy passed away by drowning in a rain-filled pool outside. So because she has to wait for rain, heavy rain, to come through and fill the pool up, they're just buying up time. And Laura's buying time for this to happen. And she's also very afraid because in 3 months, like I mentioned before, Andy is going to turn of age, and he can then apply for legal guardianship of Piper and then take Piper away. And for the most part, outside of waiting for the rain, Laura has been waiting for the perfect child to put her daughter's soul into. So the fact she found a young, beautiful, vibrant girl that has a similar eye condition to her daughter, it's like, hey, I got a brand new one fresh out the box in the same way, like an updated model. So she was waiting for the perfect child. She got that. And for the most of the movie, she was waiting for the rain to build up in that pool. But the difficulty they're having is that as that's going on, body that is inhabiting this spirit is getting hungrier and hungrier. And because Oliver or Connor can't eat Kathy's body yet, he is literally just eating anything in the house. And this is where I want to give such a big props to the special effects team on this film. The practical effects and the sound design in this movie were second to none. Honestly, it's going to be really hard for another movie to top this in regards to how great it was, because literally, like I mentioned before, I've watched a lot of horror movies in my day, especially the last 2 years as I've been reviewing them a lot more for my channel. It's been a very long time since I've seen a movie that has like made me visibly cringe like this. And I think one of the last ones was Talk to Me, which the previous film that the Phillips brothers worked on. There were scenes where this kid was eating things. Like there's a scene where he's biting into a countertop, like a wooden countertop, and you just hear the crunching of the teeth and the gums. You hear the wood breaking, and it's so visceral. And the film starts very visceral because you start the film with somebody being, hoisted by the neck until death. And you see it, granted it's out of focus, but you see it, and you see like naked bodies portrayed in a certain way. Like the movie, you can tell, is very visceral and is meant to get a visceral feeling and reaction out of people watching the film, because I felt this in my gut, literally. It was very disturbing. Practical effects on the young actor that's portraying Connor / Oliver, he looked amazing in this, because we started as him looking like a regular child, obviously, and as time went on, it looked like more of how a body that is dead would kind of decay over time. He's getting more bloated, his skin is getting more gray and losing color, and he's getting these like demon eyes, like yellow. Like if you guys are familiar with Star Wars, you see how like Sith Lords have a certain like yellow and red burning eye kind of palette. It's very similar to this, where he just looked like Darth Sidious to the extreme in the films. It looked amazing. The way they portrayed this and things went about was amazing. And it's a little sad because as the movie gets on, as we get further and further into the synopsis, obviously, it's soon enough discovered that this Laura is being very weird and being very off. And it's mostly discovered by Andy, because Andy is been going through a lot, because he's kind of dealing with a lot of the trauma from seeing his father die. Literally seeing his father die kind of gave him this trauma and phobia of showers now. So like he can't take his clothes off and get in the shower. Like you see him outside bathing with the water spigot. You see him when he finally gets into the shower, he's bathing with fully clothed. He's just like terrified of that, but he's also terrified of his sister being alone. So what we see over time is that Laura is trying to like plant seeds of let's say doubt inside of not only Andy and Piper's mind, but setting up evidence for the system itself to take him away and separate the siblings, so she doesn't have to worry about him at all. She's doing this weird thing, and this is a scene that was so foul, and I don't know how they did this. We see Laura pop a squat over a measuring cup in the bathroom and full on urinate and pee into this cup. And we're seeing that every night she is pouring this cup onto Andy's pants as he's sleeping and making him think that he's wetting the bed, making him think that he's still way more traumatized by his father's death than he actually was. She's also like spiking his creatine because he's a young lad. He likes to work out. He likes to lift weights. He has a bench press in the room that he's staying in. And she's like drugging his creatine to kind of give him like an adrenaline boost, so he's lifting weights a lot more often. She's trying to make him seem like he has anger issues and he's delusional because she doesn't want him there. And one of the reasons she didn't want him there is that he was troubled as a youth, where we realized through over time that Andy had some stuff going on. And this is why Laura is such a despicable character to me and why I love what they did here. Laura, obviously, like I mentioned before, is a counselor and was a counselor for 20 years, to 10 to 20 years in the system. She notices that obviously Andy is troubled and she is trying to dig for something, anything to showcase as a reason as to why he's acting out of order or out of sorts, for lack of a better term. We found out after a while, after she kind of plays them by giving them a great day after the funeral of their father, kind of making them feel happy again. She finally breaks down Andy enough to get him to open up to her about the things that were troubling him. We find out that Andy's father was abusing him when he was a child a lot and was blaming him as being a mess up and things of that nature. And after a while, Andy's father married Piper's mother, and Andy felt like that his father finally had the family that he wanted, that he chose, because I guess we're assuming that for some reason Andy's mother is out of the picture. We don't really know why, but we do know that he remarried and married Piper's mother, and then and Piper came into the family, came into the fold. Andy's father then never ever even treated Piper in any of the similar way that he treated Andy. So much to go on to say that Andy's father never put his hands on Piper. We learn again through him kind of venting to Laura that Andy's dad was a very abusive father, and he would like turn the shower on to try to mask the noise of him abusing his son. So Andy has this sense of jealousy that he admits to Laura, that he is very jealous in regards to Andy's father loving Piper unconditionally, and Piper always kind of getting this special treatment because of her disorder or because of just her being her in general, and he always feeling unwanted, which again plays into this whole thing when it comes to the foster system and older children being unwanted and the younger children always being the thing that are desired. Again, this whole movie comes full circle and has a lot of setups and payoffs. But obviously all this stuff was put in place to make Andy looked like a crash out. Andy then eventually crashes out because Laura is being very weird, and because Piper is very much so blind, she can't see a lot of the weird stuff that is going on throughout the film in regards to what Laura's doing. She hears Andy call out of this stuff out, but she's not really believing it because she can't see it, and it just sounds like crazy. Like, why would she do that? Once the crash out happens, we then see Andy go back to the defect office and speak to the lady that was a representative for them, and kind of gives her enough of the information that he found out up until this point, and gives her enough information to where she comes back to the home to do like a check-in to see how Laura is doing in regards to managing his children. At this point in the film, Oliver has like descended and transformed into a damn near demon almost. At this point, I think her name's Debbie. We see her go back to visit Laura's house. At this point in the movie, we have the rainwater we've been looking for, because it's been raining severely for the last couple of days, and now the pool is kind of filled with enough water for them to drown Piper in, which is really sad to say. Eventually, all hell breaks loose because Andy and the defects lady find enough information to really say, hey, she's crazy. We need to get her out of here. We need to get you and your sister out of here because this woman is insane. She's kidnapped the child. She's keeping a dead body in a freezer, yada, yada, yada. Obviously, things break loose. Laura kills the defects lady, and she also then proceeds to drown Andy in a puddle of rainwater after hitting them both with a car. And when I tell you, this was such a disturbing scene, because you don't cut away from this. Like, they make you see this child get drowned in this puddle the entire time. And I'm so interested to see how they film things like this. Like, do they just have the actor like hold their breath and pretend to drown? Or like, how did that work? Because you saw like visible death gurgles and things like that happening in the film in this moment that really made you feel for him. And then once we get into the film later on, where Piper is then brought back from like some sort of sport that she was doing that is more specialized for children that have the disability of being blind, we then have the big moment we've been looking for, to where Laura coaxes Piper out in regards to try to drown her in the pool. Obviously, at a certain point, Laura is saying and doing shady things that are finally sparking with Piper in regards to her sense of safety, or like fight or flight or personal preservation. And she's like, oh, you're lying to me. I need to leave. I need to escape. But sadly enough, Laura gets her out there into the pool of water. And while the demon child that Oliver is now turned into is watching and waiting for Piper to get drowned in this water in this pool so he can dump the soul back into her. We finally get a moment of empathy and sympathy, more so empathy from Laura, where she is understanding how sad and how much she's fucking up in regards to having to murder this child and take a life in the same way that her child's life was taken. Eventually, we have a full circle moment where, again, there's little bits and pieces of the script where we have Laura really wanting to be called mom again so bad. So she's like incentivizing the entire movie for Piper to call her mom. And this moment, she finally calls her mom to kind of get her to stop or kind of strike a chord with her some way. And it does. Like, Laura hears Piper call her mother in between the death gurgles of her drowning, and she finally stops and kind of sits and contemplates how messed up everything is. And that's when we see she lets Piper go, Piper leaves, and then Laura does some tragic shit where she goes and gets the corpse of her daughter out of the freezer that she's had there for months, and she just lays in the pool with the corpse of her daughter. And I guess because the ritual wasn't finished or time expired, we then have the demon child and Oliver, or Connor, whichever name we want to go by. The spirit kind of leaves him and we see him kind of return back to his normal state. Granted, he still has a lot of the scars and the missing teeth that he had before, but he reverts back to normal. And the movie pretty much ends in that manner. Now, what I want to talk about in regards to this film, again, like I said before, is how amazing it is and how I don't think it's getting enough attention. I mentioned before how it's amazingly well shot, it's amazingly well written, well acted, well put together in regards to the special effects team and the editing. I think this movie needs to be talked about a lot more, because at least for me, in the communities and circles that I'm in regards to the internet, I don't see a lot of people talking about this movie. I don't see a lot of people going to see this movie. When I went to go see it just recently, I was literally the only person in theaters to see this film. So I don't think the marketing budget for this was very high. I don't think the word of mouth is being spread in the way it needs to be. So I'm going to do my due diligence in promoting content that I think is worth the watch and worth the money and just amazing overall. Because what I don't want to have is at the end of this year, people talk about the movies that came out this year and they say, well, the only good thing to come out was Sinners this year, for real. No, we're not going to have that. When movies like this come around that to me are damn near comparable to Sinners. Now, again, I love Sinners for what it was and how it was such a movement and how it was so well put together and well acted and all that other good stuff. This movie is damn near on the same tier as that film, if not better in some regards. Obviously, the music is not there. The representation is not as much there, but from a concept to a well executed concept and put together story, it's up there. It's up there. So again, if you guys have not seen this movie, please do yourselves a favor and not walk, but run to the theaters and spend your 17 to 20 bucks for a ticket to go see Bring Her Back. The Philippa brothers are doing their motherfucking thing. I can't wait to see what more projects they put out in the future and how much they can push the genre forward. But yeah, man, y'all let me know what y'all think about the movie in the comment section below. Are you planning on seeing the movie? Have you seen the movie? You let me know. Again, this has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo, and I will see you guys next time. Be good people.